We're sitting down with Robin Lensch, Kettering Fairmont head athletic trainer from 1998 to 2018. Robin came to Fairmont in 1998, and over the next 2 decades, she maintained a first-class, state-of-the-art training program. Highlights of her work include the following. She incorporated injury evaluation, diagnosis, and therapeutic exercise and treatment to support Fairmont athletes. She collaborated with the Kettering Fire Department and Kettering City Schools nurses to bring automated external defibrillators, you might know them as AEDs, into Fairmont. In 2002, she collaborated with a Dayton Children's Hospital neurosurgeon and, through a grant, was one of the first in the Dayton area to institute impact concussion testing in high school sports. She initiated Return to Learn and Return to Sport stepwise approach to concussion recovery. She started sideline scored assessment to promote objective concussion assessment. This was prior to mandated high school assessments. She helped initiate online form submission, including injury documentation and athletic school physical records. She participated in a VI tracking research project between Fairmont athletes and Greater Dayton Hospital Association. Fairmont coaches who worked with Robin had nothing but high praise for her work ethic, her knowledge, and her dedication. They spoke about how she treated every athlete equally, regardless of which sport they played or their ability level. Robin has been recognized in the past for excellence with which she did her job. She was recognized by her peers as Athletic Trainer of the Year in 2009, and she was inducted into the Ohio Athletic Trainers Hall of Fame in 2022. She currently lives with her family in the Dayton area and works as a full-time clinical athletic trainer in an orthopedic group. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you.
That was a mouthful.
Thank you.
Robin, what made you choose athletic training as a career?
Oh, good question. So I didn't know what athletic training was. I honestly had barely had any injuries as a high school athlete myself. Went to Dayton Christian, small school, so didn't really know what athletic training was. Went to college, had a nasty sprained ankle trying out for the softball program. And, you know, of course, was during tryouts, and so I was disappointed I was injured. Started working with these people, and I said, what are you? What do you do? And of course, I was not a great patient, as athletes are not. But
as you found out.
As I found out. But then I said, well, I may not be a great patient, but I would love to do that. And from that moment, Bob Ducart and my other mentors there brought me along, and he said it was medicine without sick people, which in a way was true, but you know, in athletic training, you see the gamut, illness and injury. But yeah, I loved it from that day on.
Huh. Robin, as an athletic trainer, I'm sure there's a delicate balance between wanting to get an athlete back on the field to compete and exercising caution in favor of the athlete's long-term welfare. You were dealing with high school athletes and coaches and parents, and your responsibility to make a safe decision on behalf of an athlete's long-term health. Talk about what goes into that process.
You hit the nail on the head. It's you cannot be just subjective in those kind of decisions. You have to have ahead of time your objective decision tree set in your mind so that you're not going, well, you know, if this were just a scrimmage, I would hold this athlete, but it's state championship. You have to pretty much, if the safety of the athlete is at risk, you make that decision the same. You make it the same, as you mentioned, if it's a freshman newcomer athlete or a varsity four-year starter. You make those decisions. I had an opportunity with a wrestling coach. One of my favorite sports to cover here was wrestling. And a wrestling coach from another school in a big stakes match It was a decision that had to do with the safety of the athlete. And by that point, I had gotten to know a lot of the officials quite well. And, the time was up, because wrestling, you have to make your decision within 2 minutes. They get out on the mat and the coach said, "Time's up, let's go." And I said, no. And the official heard me say no. And he stopped, looked at me and said, "She makes the decisions." And unfortunately for that athlete, didn't return, but did go back to school the next week and did just fine. So was able to heal safely.
Unfortunately, at the moment, he didn't get to compete, but fortunately, in the long run,
yeah,
he was safer because of you.
Yeah, and I slept much better having that objective decision tree and being able to make that decision based on safety, not adrenaline.
That's the epitome of integrity.
Yeah, thank you. Honestly, that coach, he expressed himself, I'm not sure. He colorfully expressed himself. And, I'm not taller than anyone on the sideline. So he expressed himself colorfully and very forcefully. And about an hour and a half later, he came down and he apologized and he said, "You made the right decision." So I think coaches appreciate having someone who makes those decisions on an objective basis and not adrenaline.
Yeah, and he acted in the heat of the moment and realized once he'd cooled down that you were right and he was wrong.
Yeah,
so.
Well, and coaches should be passionate about their sport.
Right, they should.
So, but
we've seen a much better awareness of the long-term effects of head injuries in sports in recent years. You can't turn on a football game now without hearing the words concussion protocol. I listed in the intro a number of initiatives you introduced at Fairmont that were concussion related. Talk about that journey and your response to a growing problem at all levels of competitive sports.
Yeah, I can recall the days where concussion was, if you weren't knocked out, if you think they're okay, go ahead and let them back in. And I didn't feel really great about that, but that was the standard. That was the standard of practice at that point in the beginning of my career. And then some of those things that you mentioned, it more objectified the assessment of concussion in a quick way. So that sideline assessment that just did a point-wise, you go through all of these things and you can get that test done, the screening done in about 2 minutes. And you say, nope, maybe tomorrow, but right now, no, your objective testing says you should not return. You have signs of concussion. And then from that point, man, the evolution of concussion management, you're absolutely right, has grown leaps and bounds over those 20 years. And we started to do the impact testing, thanks to Dr. Moggins at Children's. Cold called me, the early days of cell phones, cold called me and said, "Hey, you have a big school, I have a grant. You want to do this?" And I said, "Let's try it out." Made all the difference. And
well, to explain impact testing.
Yeah, so impact testing is a baseline neurocognitive screening developed out of the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center that goes through a battery of neurocognitive tests on a computer, gives an athlete a score that becomes their baseline. And then they would return after a concussion at an appropriate time when they're ready to do that sort of thing and take that test again. And at the point when the athlete says, "I feel fine, I'm ready to go," well, the test might say otherwise. Right. And we really did objectify both eye testing. There are things that the eyes tell us. And then the really cool thing, well, 2 parts, was the ability to rehab certain concussion clusters, symptom clusters, that you could detect those where an athlete's struggling. And then we could actually rehab those areas. And then I felt like I was really doing something to help an athlete. The other thing that this district did, the response to intervention team here, man, we were way ahead of the curve. We brought in, it's not an IEP, it's not a 504, they had response to intervention. That's a temporary issue with an athlete that makes them not able to do school as well as they could normally. Could be a death in the family, could be an injury, could be a concussion. And that response to intervention team here was ahead of the curve in the state of Ohio. And Andy White and I were able to go with our response to intervention team and speak up at the state level and show our template. So athletes, they were so frustrated because they just couldn't focus enough to do school. And I read it, I don't remember it. I read it, I don't remember. My eyes are shaky. And the response to intervention team would say, that's all part of concussion. Let's get you some support through this. And then wean down, and then they'd be good. So,
Wow.
Yeah, it was really an honor to be a part of that whole sequelae of events.
You really brought us into the 21st century on that, didn't you?
I tried, and I think it was also the collaboration of this district and statewide and national movements as well. But you can be behind the curve or ahead of the curve, and I feel like we were able, thanks to the administration here, to be ahead of the curve.
Another important advancement you oversaw was bringing AEDs into the Kettering schools buildings. Talk about that process and why that's important.
So yeah, another national initiative was having external automated defibrillators right where they're life-saving devices, right where people would go down, whether it's at a game, it's at a restaurant, wherever it is. And Kettering Fire Department, another really cool initiative that really, I think it epitomizes the city of Kettering, because the city of Kettering had AEDs that they were using in their, I think it was their police cars. And they weren't obsolete, they were just changing a system in the fire department. And they wanted to have smooth transition. And so they said, well, we have, I think it was 12 maybe? I can't remember, 8 or 12 AEDs. And the fire department and I worked together with this district administration and the school nurses. And we put AEDs, I think there were 3 or 4 here at the high school, and then both middle schools, I think down at the stadium, and then a couple of the elementary schools. And so those life-saving devices right here, where they were needed. And again, thanks to the collaboration of the City of Kettering Fire and the district here.
For those that don't understand or don't know what an AED is, can you just give us a real quick?
Yeah, so the heart works with electrical rhythm. So the muscle itself is a self-pumping, self-electrifying. It doesn't require our brain to tell it to beat. It beats on its own. And every now and then there's a malfunction in that electrical rhythm. And if it continues, it fibrillates, and then it will stop because it's not effectively beating. And if you can get an AED or a shock to that heart within the first 2 to 5 minutes, you are likely to save that person's life. And Jamar Hamlin is a perfect example of that. He took a hit to the chest and stopped his heart. And you saw for a moment he was up and then he was down. And you go, what? Well, those quick actions. And they had a lot higher technology and a whole team of folks with advanced cardiac life support on their sideline. But to have basic life support with an AED, if God forbid that type of situation would happen on one of our sidelines, we had an AED right there to shock that athlete's heart.
Life-saving device.
Yeah.
Huh. Robin, are there any other special highlights that stand out from your 21 years as an athletic trainer at Fairmont?
The one thing, as I heard from Bill Lauder, that this committee had chosen me for this tremendous honor, and I thought, how did it happen that I was able to get connected with this community and it just worked? And I think as an athletic trainer, as a healthcare professional, you can only do the things you do if the patient population reaches back to you. Of course, if administration supports what you need to do for those patients as well. And man, we just hit the sweet spot. I clicked with the athletic department. I clicked with the coaches. But the families reaching back for help, that's what fulfills a healthcare provider. So I love to go the extra mile if someone is receptive to that extra mile. And I feel like the families and the athletes here all very competitive, love to compete, but man, when they were reaching out in their time of need, it was really touching to be that person they reached to and to give them health care where they're at.
And it works both ways. They quickly saw you as that person to reach out to, and saw you as a friend, and saw you as somebody who cared about their kids' health, and you were ethical, and you did things the right way. And
thank you.
That's why you're sitting here right now.
It was a real honor. It was a real honor.
Finally, is there anyone you want to mention, recognize, or thank?
Well, I'll have the opportunity to thank several tomorrow, and I have them on a list of what I'm going to say. The athletic director of the athletic department coming in when I first started, Rick, Fran, Johnny, Frank Baxter, and I started the same year. This committee especially, thank you, because the tireless work that goes into that, the district, like I said, the administrators, the teachers, the custodians, my goodness, the things that everyone does here to do the next level. It's just, that collaboration was a real honor.
Robin, what a phenomenal contribution you made to the Kettering schools while you were here. And I thank you for that and congratulate you on this honor, and enjoy the weekend.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This is great.